by looking at the issue of Ameen. And I mentioned in last week's dars some virtues and some ahadith regarding the importance of saying Ameen. I mentioned the hadith of Sahih al-Bukhari where the Prophet of Allah ﷺ said that whoever Ameen coincides with the Ameen said by the Malaika, said by the angels, then all their previous sins will be forgiven. Now all the scholars, all the ulamas agree that in Salah when the Imam says غَيْرِ الْمَغْضُوبِ عَلَيْهِمْ وَلَا الضَّالِّينَ, for the Imam and the Muqtadi, i.e. the followers, it is sunnah for both the Imam and the Muqtadi to say Ameen. There's no differences of opinions with regard to this particular issue. However, there are differences of opinions whether the Ameen will be said quietly or whether it will be said loudly. And I mentioned in last week's lesson, that Imam Abu Hanifa rahmatullah alayh, Imam Malik rahmatullah alayh, and the latter view of Imam Shafi rahmatullah alayh, known as Qawl Jadid, is that the Ameen should be said quietly. Whereas Imam Shafi rahmatullah alayh's earlier view, known as Qawl Qadim, upon which Hafiz bin Hajar rahmatullah alayh has given the fatwa, and Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal rahmatullah alayh say that the Ameen should be said loudly, and evidences establishing the Hanafi school of thought, their view, evidences put forward by Imam Shafi rahmatullah alayh, then the answers given by Imam Abu Hanifa and the Hanafi school on the dalils, on the proofs put forward by Imam Shafi rahmatullah alayh, and on top of that the statements of the Sahabas. All these things were looked at in quite detail last week. Now before I finish Surah Al-Fatiha, there's one final issue which we need to look at. And this issue, like the issue which we just discussed last week regarding Ameen, is such an issue where there are many factions, there are many groups, and each group and each faction are ready to criticize the other groups. Each faction and each group are ready to label the other groups as being wrong and as being deviant and so on. Now the issue which we're going to look at today, in Arabic it is known as qira'atu khalf al-imam, recitation behind the imam, which basically means that in salah, whether it's loud salah such as Maghrib, Isha and Fajr, or whether it's the quiet salah such as Zuhr and Asr, would a muqtadi or would a follower recite anything behind the imam or not? Now before we look into the Quranic verses and the hadith regarding this particular issue, I will first of all just very briefly mention what the four schools of thought say regarding this particular masala. Now Imam Abu Hanifa rahmatullah alayh says, and similarly the views of his students Imam Abu Yusuf rahmatullah alayh and Imam Muhammad rahmatullah alayh, is that under all circumstances, whether it is loud salah, whether it is jahri salah such as Fajr, Maghrib and Isha, or whether it is the quiet salah such as Zuhr and Asr, the muqtadi, the followers, it is not permissible for them to recite anything from the Holy Quran behind the imam. It is not permissible for them to recite Surah Al-Fatiha behind the imam. It is not permissible for them to recite anything besides Surah Al-Fatiha when they are reading salah behind the imam. Whether it is, as I said, the quiet prayers such as Zuhr and Asr, or whether it is the 2 rakat after Isha, or the third rakat in the Maghrib Salah when the Imam is quiet from his recitation. Under all circumstances, when you are reading Salah behind the Imam, you have to be quiet. And if a person recites anything, then his recitation is considered as makruh tahrimi, it is considered as severely disliked. And this is the view of Imam Abu Hanifa rahmatullah alayh, and as I also mentioned, this is also the view of his students Imam Abu Yusuf rahmatullah alayh and Imam Muhammad rahmatullah alayh. Now with regards to Imam Muhammad rahmatullah alayh, there are some reports which say that Imam Muhammad rahmatullah alayh has in fact or has indeed said that to recite Surah Al-Fatiha in quiet prayers, Sidri prayers such as Zuhur and Asr is mustahab, is desirable. And if you look in Hidayah, which is a very important and a very reliable book in Hanafi jurisprudence, it actually mentions that Imam Muhammad rahmatullah alayhi has said that it is mustahab, it is mustahsan for a person to recite Surah Al-Fatiha in quiet prayers such as Zuhur and Asr. Now, Imam Haskafi rahmatullah alayhi, who is the author of Durr Mukhtar, he has said that the report attributed to Imam Muhammad rahmatullah alayhi that in quiet prayers such as Zuhur and Asr you have to recite Surah Al-Fatiha quietly, or you can recite Surah Al-Fatiha. He has said that this report attributed to Imam Muhammad is weak, meaning that it's not correct to attribute that report to Imam Muhammad rahmatullah alayhi. So that's one. And the second answer, or the second reply, is that Allama Ibn Abidin al-Shami rahmatullah alayhi, who has written the well-renowned book on Hanafi jurisprudence known as Raddul Muhtar, he has said that the reason why Imam Muhammad rahmatullah alayhi has said that you have to recite, or it is mustahab to recite Surah Al-Fatiha, he said it out of precaution, ihtiyatan. And why did he say out of precaution? Is because there are many ahadith and there are also some statements of the Sahabas and the companions who have said that it is wajib and obligatory to recite Surah Al-Fatiha in Salah. So out of precaution, Imam Muhammad rahmatullah alayhi has said that it is mustahab to recite Surah Al-Fatiha in quiet Salah such as Zuhur and Asr. But as I mentioned before, the general view in the Hanafi school of thought is that it is makruh tahrimi, it is considered severely disliked to recite Surah Al-Fatiha behind the Imam. So that is the view according to Imam Abu Hanifa rahmatullah alayhi. According to Imam Malik rahmatullah alayhi, or the view in the Maliki school of thought, is that in loud prayers such as Fajr, Maghrib and Isha, to recite Surah Al-Fatiha is makruh. Similar to the Hanafi school of thought, that in loud prayers such as Fajr, Maghrib and Isha, to recite Surah Al-Fatiha is makruh. However, in quiet prayers, Sidri prayers such as Zuhur and Asr, then according to Imam Malik rahmatullah alayhi, it is mustahab and it is desirable to recite Surah Al-Fatiha. Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal rahmatullah alayhi has the same view, that is that in loud prayers to recite Surah Al-Fatiha is makruh. However, in quiet prayers such as Zuhur and Asr, then it is desirable to recite Surah Al-Fatiha. Imam Shafi rahmatullah alayhi, on the other hand, in his mazhab, in quiet prayers such as Zuhur and Asr, it is wajib, it is obligatory to recite Surah Al-Fatiha. So according to the Shafi fiqh, in quiet prayers such as Zuhur and Asr, it is wajib and it is obligatory to recite Surah Al-Fatiha. With regards to loud prayers such as Fajr, Maghrib and Isha, then in the Shafi fiqh there are two views. One is known as the Qawl Qadim, the earlier view of Imam Shafi rahmatullah alayh, and the other one is known as Qawl Jadid, the later view of Imam Shafi rahmatullah alayh. Now Qawl Qadim, according to the earlier view of Imam Shafi rahmatullah alayh, he said that in loud prayers it is not permissible to recite Surah Al-Fatiha at all. Like a Muqtadi, a Shafi follower, when the Imam is reciting in loud prayers such as Fajr, Maghrib and Isha, then for a Shafi Muqtadi, for a Shafi follower, for him to recite Surah Al-Fatiha is makruh. That was the earlier view of Imam Shafi rahmatullah alayh. And the later view of Imam Shafi rahmatullah alayh, which is known as Qawl Jadid, he has said that it is wajib and it is obligatory to recite Surah Al-Fatiha irrespective of whether it is loud prayers or whether it is quiet prayers. So the conclusion we can deduce basically from the Shafi fiqh is that it is wajib and obligatory to recite Surah Al-Fatiha whether it is loud prayers such as Fajr, Maghrib and Isha, or whether it is quiet prayers such as Zuhr and Asr. Now, firstly we will look at our proofs meaning the Hanafi proofs to establish this particular point. Now, our strongest proof is what is mentioned in the Holy Quran. In Surah Al-A'raf, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has said, وَإِذَا قُرِئَ الْقُرْآنُ فَاسْتَمِعُوا لَهُ وَأَنصِتُوا لَعَلَّكُمْ تُرْحَمُونَ. That when the Quran is recited, then listen to it attentively, وَأَنصِتُوا, and remain silent, لَعَلَّكُمْ تُرْحَمُونَ, so that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala could shower His mercy upon you. So this verse is our strongest verse, because in this verse Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that when the Quran is recited, and according to the principles of fiqh, this ayat or this verse is known as mutlaq, meaning that whether it is in salah, whether it is in outside salah, whether it is in quiet salah, whether it is in loud salah, because obviously in quiet salah, even though the muqtadis don't recite, the imam also recites as well. So when the Quran is recited, وَإِذَا قُرِئَ الْقُرْآنُ فَاسْتَمِعُوا لَهُ, then listen to it attentively, وَأَنصِتُوا, and be quiet, be silent, so that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can shower His mercy upon you. Shaykhul Islam Ibn Taymiyyah rahmatullah alayhi in his fatwa has written that this particular verse was revealed regarding salah, or was revealed regarding salah and khutbah. Meaning that when the Quran is recited during salah, or when the imam or when the khatib is giving his khutbah, then during those two periods, a person, the listener, the mustami, he has to remain silent, he has to remain quiet. It's haram, it's unlawful for him to recite anything from the Holy Quran. It's haram for a person whilst listening to a khutbah to talk to another person, even telling the person sitting next to you that be quiet. That is also not permissible, that is also not allowed. So the meaning of this particular verse, وَإِذَا قُرِئَ الْقُرْآنُ فَاسْتَمِعُوا لَهُ وَأَنصِتُوا لَعَلَّكُمْ تُرْحَمُونَ, is that when the Quran is being recited, then listen to it attentively and be quiet. And that is the strongest proof given by Imam Hanifa rahmatullah, or from the Hanafi school of thought, to prove that to recite anything behind the imam is makruh tahrimi and severely disliked. The second proof is a hadith of Sahih al-Muslim. And the crux of the hadith is a long hadith, but the main part of the hadith is that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam has said that when the imam is reciting, then remain silent. That when the imam is reading in salah, then remain silent. So again, Sahih al-Muslim and Sahih al-Muslim, like Sahih al-Bukhari, they are all known as Sahih because they all have authentic hadiths. So that is an authentic hadith from Sahih al-Muslim to establish and to prove that when the imam is reciting, then you should remain silent. The third hadith, which can be found in Musannaf ibn Abi Shayba, Sunan ibn Majah, and Sunan Bayhaqi, is that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam has said, "Man kana lahu imamun, fa qira'atul imami lahu qira'atun." That whoever has an imam, meaning that whoever is reading salah behind the imam, then the imam's recitation, the imam's qira'at suffices for him. Meaning that in loud prayers, in quiet prayers, when you are reading behind the imam, then the recitation the imam is doing, even though in quiet prayers you can't hear the recitation, but the recitation which the imam is doing, then his recitation, his qira'at suffices for you, meaning that you don't have to recite anything. So these three proofs which are brought forward, there are many, if you look in, there are many books which have been written under this particular topic. There are many ahadith which support the view of Imam Abu Hanif rahmatullah alayh, and that is that when you are reading salah behind the imam, whether it's the quiet prayers, or whether it's like the third or fourth rakat of Isha, or even the third rakat of Maghrib, and so on, even then you have to be quiet and you cannot recite anything. Now the view or the evidences put forward by Imam Shafi rahmatullah alayh is the hadith of Sahih al-Bukhari. And the hadith of Sahih al-Bukhari is that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam has said La salata illa bi fatihatil kitab. That there is no salah or there is no prayers without Surah Al-Fatiha. Meaning that if you don't recite Surah Al-Fatiha, then your salah will not be done. So that is like the main proof which is brought forward by the Shafi school of thought and those who say that you can or it is desirable to recite Surah Al-Fatiha behind the Imam. Now the answers given by the Hanafi school of thought on this particular hadith are many, but there are just two which I will just mention in front of you. The first answer, or probably the ulamas who are probably sitting, or the ulamas who are listening, or even the students, you're more likely to understand. And that is that this hadith of Sahih al-Bukhari, La salata illa bi fatihatil kitab, is known in hadith terminology as khabre wahid. And whenever there is a contradiction between a Quranic verse and a khabre wahid, meaning that the Quran is saying, وَإِذَا قُرِئَ الْقُرْآنُ فَاسْتَمِعُوا لَهُ وَأَنصِتُوا. The Quran is saying that be quiet, don't recite anything. And whereas this hadith, which is a khabre wahid, is saying that, oh, you have to recite Surah Al-Fatiha. So whenever there is a contradiction between a Quranic verse and a khabre wahid, we act upon the Quran and we will leave the khabre wahid and we will leave the hadith. So exactly same is happening in this particular incident, where the Quran is saying that be quiet, listen to the Quran attentively, whereas the khabre wahid is saying that, oh no, you have to recite Surah Al-Fatiha in Salah. So therefore, in that situation, we will act upon the Quran and we won't act upon the hadith. So that is the first reply. And the second reply to this particular hadith is that this hadith, La salata illa bi fatihatil kitab, is not a full hadith. What do you mean by that? In Sunan Abu Dawood, with another set of narrations and chain of narrators, it's got the word La salata liman lam yaqra bi fatihatil kitabi fasa'ida, which basically means that there is no salah, i.e. that person's salah will not be accepted, who doesn't read Surah Al-Fatiha or anything extra. Fasaidan means anything extra. Now what we're trying to, the second reply to this particular hadith, we are trying to say is that this hadith is not the complete hadith. And the complete hadith, it has the word fasaidan afterwards, which basically gives the meaning of the hadith as, if you don't recite Surah Al-Fatiha, or if you don't recite anything after Surah Al-Fatiha or anything besides Surah Al-Fatiha, then your namaz will not be done. And that's what the Hanafi school of thought says. That we, as the Hanafi mazhab, we do say that if you don't recite Surah Al-Fatiha, or if you don't recite anything at all, your namaz will not be done. Okay? So when we look at the full transcript of the hadith, and we find that there is a word for sa'idan, then that actually is establishing our point of view, and that is that if you don't recite Surah Al-Fatiha or anything extra, then your salah will not be done. And obviously that's what we say, because we, the Hanafi mazhab, we say that qira'at and recitation is a prerequisite. Well, not prerequisite, it's actually something which is compulsory and necessary within salah. That if you don't recite anything, if you don't recite Surah Al-Fatiha, if you don't recite anything which constitutes a verse, then your salah and your namaz will not be done. So when we look at the full transcript of the hadith, we find that this particular hadith actually supports our view. Now last week I mentioned, when we're looking at the Ameen situation, that whenever there's differences of hadiths, it's good to look at what the Sahabas have said. It's good to look at what the companions have said. And when we look through the actions and the practices of the companions, we find many of them ordered their disciples, ordered their students not to recite anything behind the Imam. It is mentioned in like Tahawi Sharif of Imam Tahawi rahmatullah alayh, and other books as well, that Sahaba's companions such as Hazrat Zayd bin Sabit radhiyallahu anhu, Hazrat Ali radhiyallahu anhu, Hazrat Abdullah bin Mas'ud radhiyallahu anhu, Hazrat Abdullah bin Abbas radhiyallahu anhu, Hazrat Abdullah bin Umar radhiyallahu anhu, have all said in their various athar and various sayings, they have all said that if an imam if you have an imam, then the muqtadi should not recite anything besides the imam. So therefore, the conclusion we can come to is, along with all the hadiths and along with the Quranic verse, وَإِذَا قُرِئَ الْقُرْآنُ فَاسْتَمِعُوا لَهُ وَأَنصِتُوا, that is that when the muqtadi, when the followers are reciting behind the imam, then they should be quiet and they should listen to the recitation of the imam quietly. If you are reading salah by yourself, if you are munfarid, and obviously in that situation, because there's no imam there, then in that situation you have to recite Surah Al-Fatiha, and obviously if you don't recite Surah Al-Fatiha, then you have missed out something which is obligatory and wajib in salah. So alhamdulillah, that kind of concludes Surah Al-Fatiha. Inshallah, we'll just make a start on Surah Al-Baqarah.
I have a question. I got my car long distance back. I just want one question.
Okay, sure.
What you just mentioned. May I ask that? May I ask you that question?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Brother, you said when we read Salah, we don't read Surah Fatiha, and we shouldn't read Surah Fatiha. This is according to Hanafi Madhab. Now, I see here, when I prayed my first prayer, the Imam was on the speaker. He was saying something, then people were praying, they were talking to Allah, they were still in ruku, sujood, and qiyam. Now, is that disliking? And plus, there were some people that were still praying and he was begging dua on the speaker. Now he's contradicting the verse you recite, Surah 7, verse 2 or 4. Allah says, when the Quran is recited, be quiet, listen, so Allah has mercy on you. Now this thing is simply, I see, they say, we believe all the verses. Now they contradict, because they were praying here, and he was speaking on dua, Rabbana Atina. Well, simply dua, I understand, I beg dua. Dua is between Allah and your qulub, this. But that speaker, if you want to make people to see, good. But I just cannot understand, this was what you say, I believe. But how can I make a noise when other people are in ruku position to do them here? They are contradicting Hanafi themselves. And I can't find in the Quran and Hadith Hanafi, Maliki, Shafi, I can't find any proof. If somebody can find me proof, I want to die before, I want to do Tawbah.
He doesn't believe in Madhab, that's why he finds it criticizing.
No, I do believe in Imam Abu Hanifa.
No, you've got a fair point, because obviously when
no proof. In the Prophet said, I'm giving you two things, one Quran and Sunnah. No proof, Hanafi, Maliki, Shafi, Hanbali, no proof. Any person on this earth, give me one proof. No. Arab or non-Arab Muslim, no proof.
Okay.
It's cooking in supermarket.
So, you let the Shaykh after him.
Yes.
The proof, the point you mentioned, it's valid, and that is like when someone is reciting Quran, then obviously you're supposed to be quiet and listen to it attentively. So we're not going against that. Obviously, the other issues you mentioned about proofs of following Hanafi, Malik, and so on, that is like another issue regarding the subject regarding taqleed, which obviously we don't have time to get into. Okay, let's make a start on Surah Al-Baqarah. Surah Al-Baqarah. Now, Surah Al-Baqarah, the second surah, the second chapter of the Holy Quran, is known as Surah Al-Baqarah. And Surah Al-Baqarah means the cow. And the reason why this surah is called the cow is because of an incident which is going to be mentioned later on in the Sipara, later on in the Para. Just very briefly, Mullah Liqai Rahmatullah Alayhi in his Mirqat has written that once there was this person from Banu Israel, from the Jews, who wanted to marry this girl. But the girl's father didn't agree with the proposal. So that man, that Jew, he got so angry that he killed the girl's father, and he ran away and he disappeared. So the Jews, in their community, in their tribe, they see there's a body lying around, but they don't know who the killer is, they don't know who the qatil is. So they ask Prophet Musa alayhi salam, and they ask Musa alayhi salam to pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can tell them and can show them who the killer is. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala didn't want to tell the Jews the killer's name just like that. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wanted to show them a miracle first, and then after showing the miracle, then the killer would be exposed. And what was the miracle? وَإِذْ قَالَ مُوسَى لِقَوْمِهِ إِنَّ اللَّهَ يَأْمُرُكُمْ أَن تَذْبَحُوا بَقَرَةً. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ordered the people, or ordered the Jews, that sacrifice a cow. And then after sacrificing the cow, the flesh of the cow, put it or touch or use the flesh of the cow and touch it or put it on the dead man's body, which would enable the dead man to be brought back to life again, and then he will say, or he will tell everyone who killed him, and then he will die. So what happened afterwards? Obviously, when the story comes out, we'll look at it in more detail. But as you know, the Jews, they always like to ask questions. So they started asking questions, or okay, what kind of cow shall we slaughter? What's the color of the cow, and so on. And because of that reason, this surah is called Surah Al-Baqarah. Now, this surah is a Madani surah. And as I mentioned before, the difference between Makki and Madani, the scholars have written that Makki are those surahs which were revealed to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam before he migrated to Medina Munawwara. And Madani are those surahs which were revealed to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam after he migrated to Medina Munawwara. So this surah, Surah Al-Baqarah, is a Madani surah, meaning that this is a surah which was revealed to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, or the majority portion of this surah was revealed to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam after he migrated to Medina Munawwara. Now, the next thing we're going to look at is some khususiyat, or some characteristics of this particular surah. Allama Ibn Arabi rahmatullah alayhi has written that this surah has 1,000 orders. That it has 1,000 orders, it has 1,000 prohibitions, it has 1,000 commands, and it has 1,000 wisdoms. Meaning that this surah, which goes for around 2.5 paras, it has 1,000 words, or 1,000 such words or fragments where it indicates towards a command, indicates towards something which you should do. Also, it has 1,000 prohibitions, indicating to things which you should not do. It also has 1,000 wisdoms, meaning that things or lessons where Muslims, when they read it, they can take heed from. Another characteristic of this particular surah is that in this surah, you will find basically all the masail, all the rulings and injunctions are found in this particular surah. Injunctions regarding salah, injunctions regarding zakat is found in this particular surah. Aqimus salata wa atuz zakat. Furthermore, injunctions regarding fasting, injunctions regarding the virtues of the month of Ramadan and the Holy Quran being revealed in the month of Ramadan is found in this particular surah. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu kutiba alaykumus siyamu kama kutiba alal ladhina min qablikum la'allakum tattaqun. Furthermore, there are injunctions, verses regarding Hajj. Al-Hajju ashhurun ma'lumat. فَمَنْ فَرَضَ فِيهِنَّ الْحَجَّ فَلَا رَفَثَ وَلَا فُسُوقَ وَلَا جِدَالَ فِي الْحَجِّ. Injunctions regarding marriage, nikah, is also found in this particular surah. Injunctions regarding talaq and divorce, like 3 divorces, that if a husband divorces his wife 3 times, whether in one sentence, whether in 3 different sittings, then 3 divorces will be effected. The ruling, the injunction is also found in this surah as well. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَإِن طَلَّقَهَا فَلَا تَحِلُّ لَهُ مِن بَعْدُ حَتَّى تَنْكِيَ زَوْجًا غَيْرَهُ. Things such as suckling the child, breastfeeding the child is also found in this particular surah as well. Things regarding jihad is also found in this particular surah. Rulings, injunctions regarding even retaliation, known as qisas, is also found in this particular surah. That if a person kills another Muslim intentionally, then he will be killed as well. Injunctions are also found in this particular surah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu kutiba alaykumul qisasu fil qatla, al-hurru bil-hurri, wal-abdu bil-abdi, wal-unsa bil-unsa. So this surah is one of those comprehensive surahs where everything from purification, from salah, from zakat, from fasting, hajj, Everything is found in this particular surah. And because of the comprehensive nature of this particular surah, it took Hazrat Umar bin Khattab radiallahu anhu 12 years to fully study and to fully understand this particular surah. Great Sahabi such as Umar bin Khattab radiallahu anhu, who was with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam all the time. If it takes Hazrat Umar bin Khattab radiallahu anhu that long, so you can understand, how comprehensive this particular surah is. Now, Surah Al-Baqarah, there are many virtues, there are many fazails regarding this particular surah. There is a hadith which can be found in Sunan al-Bayhaqi, where the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam has said that whoever recites Surah Al-Baqarah, then on the day of judgment, he will be given a crown to wear. The same way, like I mentioned the hadith before in Sunan Abu Dawud, that whoever memorizes the Holy Quran, then his parents will be given a crown to wear on the day of judgment. Then similarly, a person who recites Surah Al-Baqarah, then on the day of judgment, he will be given a crown to wear. In another hadith of Sahih al-Muslim narrated by Sayyidina Abu Hurairah anhu, the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam has said that shaitan is barred from entering such a house where Surah Al-Baqarah is recited. Meaning those houses where Surah Al-Baqarah is recited, then shaitan is barred from entering there. And another hadith of Sahih al-Muslim, where the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam has said that whoever recites Surah Al-Baqarah and Surah Al Imran, then on the day of judgment, 2 flocks of birds, or 2 shadows, or 2 clouds will come and they will plead and they will intercede on behalf of its reciter. So there are many virtues regarding this particular surah. Just mention 3 of them. Inshallah, we will make a start on the surah. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alif Lam Mim. Now the first verse of Surah Al-Baqarah is Alif Lam Mim. And when we look through the Holy Quran, there are many chapters, and many chapters have these kind of words such as Alif Lam Mim, Alif Lam Ra, Yasin, Kaf Ha Ya Ain Swad, and so on. Ha Mim, Ain Sin Qaf. So these words are known as Huruf Muqatta'at. Now the question is, the Huruf Muqatta'at, what do they mean? Now some scholars of the view the Huruf Muqatta'at, words such as Alif Lam Mim Ra, and so on, they are the divine names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The same way Ar-Rahman is the divine name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is the attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Rahim, Malik, Al-Quddus, and so on. Then similarly, some scholars have said that these words, the Huruf Muqatta'at, such as Alif Lam Mim Ra, Kaf Ha Ya Ain Swad, and so on, they are the divine names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The second view is that Alif Lam Mim and the Huruf Muqatta'at, these are such words which only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and some scholars have said only Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala know the true meaning of. Basically, these are what you call mystery, or these are symbols that the true meaning only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows and only Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam knows. Meaning that besides Allah and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, nobody knows the true meaning of these mysteries and these symbols. And because of this, the explanation or the commentary wasn't communicated to the general public. So the conclusion is that Huruf Muqatta'at, there are 2 views. Some people have said that it's the name or it's the divine name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, whereas others have said that these are mysteries and symbols which only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam have the true meaning or know the exact meaning of this particular verse. Inshallah, we'll just leave it here for this week because we've got the marriage course later. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the tawfiq to accept what has been said. Wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillah. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار اللهم فاغفر لنا ذنوبنا وكفر عنا سيئاتنا وتوفنا مع الأبرار ربنا هب لنا من أزواجنا وذرياتنا قرة أعين واجعلنا للمتقين إماما اللهم إنا نسألك علما نافعا وعملا متقبلا ورزقا طيبا والشفاء من كل داء وصلى الله تعالى على خير خلقه محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين برحمته.